Ladies and gentlemen, life often feels like a journey with milestones and destinations we long to reach. But then there's that place, a holding pattern we didn't plan for, a season of waiting we didn't choose. I call it God's waiting room. It's not a comfortable place, but let me tell you, it is the most crucial stage on your path to greatness. God's waiting room is often misunderstood. Many perceive it as a place of delay, frustration, or unanswered prayers, but it is so much more profound than that. It is a sacred space where God works behind the scenes, preparing us for the blessings He has in store. In this waiting room, time is not wasted. Instead, it is invested in shaping us into the people we need to become to fully embrace His divine plan. Think of a seed buried in the soil. To the untrained eye, it may appear as though nothing is happening. Days, weeks, and even months may pass, and the surface remains unchanged. Yet, beneath the soil, a transformation is taking place. Roots are spreading, nourishment is being absorbed, and the seed is being prepared for the moment it will break through the earth and reach toward the sun. In the same way, God uses seasons of waiting to work on us internally, nurturing our spirit and refining our character for the blessings that lie ahead. Preparation in God's waiting room is often uncomfortable, but it is necessary. It is here that God removes the impurities in our hearts, our pride, impatience, selfishness, and doubts. These are the very things that could sabotage the blessings we are waiting for if left unchecked. Just as gold is refined by fire, so are we refined in the waiting. The process may feel like a delay, but in reality, it is an act of divine love, ensuring we are ready for what is to come. During this time, God also teaches us patience and perseverance. These qualities are not learned in moments of instant gratification. They are developed through enduring and trusting. Waiting forces us to confront our desire for control and teaches us to surrender fully to God's will. It is in this surrender that we grow closer to Him, learning to trust His timing over our own. This trust is not passive, it is active faith, demonstrated by our ability to remain steadfast even when we cannot see the full picture. Furthermore, God's waiting room is where clarity is born. In the rush of life, it is easy to lose sight of our true purpose or to mistake fleeting desires for lasting fulfillment. The waiting period is an opportunity to realign our hearts and minds with God's plan. It allows us to pause and listen, to seek His guidance without the distractions of haste. In the stillness, we often gain insights we would have missed if we had rushed ahead. Consider the story of Joseph in the Bible. He was given dreams of greatness, yet his journey to that destiny was marked by betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment. Each of these seasons in Joseph's life was a part of God's preparation. The waiting taught him humility, resilience, and the ability to lead with wisdom. By the time Joseph stepped into his role as second in command of Egypt, he was not just a dreamer. He was a man equipped to steward the dream responsibly. In our lives, the waiting room often feels like a place of silence, but it is far from empty. It is a place where God speaks to us in whispers, teaching us to discern His voice. It is where He equips us with the tools, relationships, and experiences necessary for the next season. Like a master craftsman, God is shaping every detail, ensuring that we are ready to fulfill the purpose for which we were created. It is important to remember that the waiting room is not a place of idleness. God does not call us to sit passively while we wait. He calls us to prepare actively. This may mean developing our skills, deepening our knowledge of His Word, or serving others in ways that align with His kingdom. How we spend this time reveals our faith and readiness. Are we preparing our hearts, minds, and hands for the blessings we are asking for? Ultimately, the waiting room is a place of transformation. When we emerge, we are not the same as when we entered. The growth, wisdom, and strength gained during this time are part of the blessing itself. God's preparation is always purposeful and His timing is always perfect. Trust that the waiting is not in vain. For when the appointed time comes, you will step into your destiny with the confidence and capability to carry it out. So, embrace God's waiting room. See it not as a detour, but as a necessary step on the path to your greatest blessing. Trust the process, lean into the preparation, and know that God is working all things together for your good. Delay often feels like rejection, especially when you've been waiting for something that seems long overdue. It can be a job you prayed for, a breakthrough in a relationship, or even a deeper calling that has yet to materialize. In moments of waiting, it's easy to feel overlooked, forgotten, or even abandoned. However, with God, a delay is never a denial. His timing is not bound by human schedules, and His plans are always for your good. Understanding this truth transforms the waiting period from frustration to trust and hope. In our limited perspective, we often equate immediacy with favor and delay with disfavor. But God's ways are higher than ours, and His perspective is eternal. He sees the end from the beginning and understands the intricacies of how every detail must align to bring about the best possible outcome. A delay is not an indication of God's unwillingness to bless you. Rather, it is evidence of His commitment to giving you what is best at the right time. Think of a farmer planting seeds in the ground. He doesn't expect an immediate harvest the day after planting. Instead, he trusts the process, knowing that growth takes time. In the same way, God's delays are part of a divine process. There are seasons in which the soil of your life is being prepared for the fruit He intends to produce. It's not just about you receiving the blessing, it's about you being ready to handle it and the circumstances being perfectly aligned for it to flourish. One of the greatest examples of this principle is the story of Abraham and Sarah. God promised Abraham that he would be the father of many nations. Yet, years passed without any sign of a child. The waiting tested their faith, and at times, their impatience led to missteps like the birth of Ishmael. However, God remained faithful to His promise, and in the fullness of time, Isaac was born. The delay wasn't because God had forgotten or changed His mind. It was because He was working out His purpose in His perfect timing. In your own life, a delay may be God's way of protecting you from receiving something prematurely. Imagine being handed a key to a door you're not yet prepared to walk through. Without the necessary growth, wisdom, or maturity, a blessing can quickly become a burden. God's delays are not about withholding good things from you, but about ensuring that those good things are a source of joy and fulfillment rather than stress and disappointment. Delays also serve as a testing ground for your faith. It's one thing to believe when everything is happening according to your timeline, but it's another to trust when you can't see any evidence of progress. Faith that endures through delay is faith that is deeply rooted in God's character and promises, not in immediate results. The waiting period strengthens your reliance on Him, teaching you to walk by faith and not by sight. Consider the story of Lazarus. When Mary and Martha sent word to Jesus that their brother was sick, they expected Him to come immediately. Instead, Jesus delayed and Lazarus died. From their perspective, the delay seemed like neglect or even denial. But Jesus had a greater purpose. When He arrived, He didn't just heal Lazarus. He raised him from the dead. The delay was not a denial. It was an opportunity for God's glory to be revealed in a way that exceeded their expectations. In the same way, God's delays in your life are often setting the stage for a greater revelation of His power and love. What seems like a no is often a not yet. Trust that God knows what He is doing, even when the waiting feels endless. His plans are not only for your immediate good, but for your eternal benefit, shaping you into the person He has called you to be. During the waiting period, it's important to keep your heart and mind aligned with God's promises. Avoid the temptation to compare your journey with others or to take shortcuts. Impatience can lead to decisions that derail God's plan, as we see in the case of Abraham and Sarah. Instead, focus on what God is teaching you in this season. Pray, seek His guidance, and remain faithful in the small things. Ultimately, delay is an invitation to deepen your relationship with God. It's a time to learn to trust His character and lean into His promises. Remember that He is a God who finishes what He starts, and He has not forgotten you. What He has spoken over your life will come to pass. Not a moment too early or too late, but precisely at the appointed time. So, when you face delay, don't see it as a closed door, but as a pause with purpose. Trust that God is orchestrating every detail for your good. Let the delay strengthen your faith, refine your character, and prepare you for the fullness of His blessing. With God, a delay is never a denial. It's a setup for something greater than you could ever imagine. When you find yourself in a season of waiting or struggle, it can be tempting to question the purpose of it all. Why the delay? Why the hardship? Why the uncertainty? But with God, nothing is wasted, and every part of the journey holds significance. There is purpose in the process, even when it feels like you are standing still. In fact, the process itself is often the very thing that shapes you for your destiny. God is not just concerned with the destination. He is deeply invested in who you become along the way. The process is where He molds your character, strengthens your faith, and teaches you to trust Him completely. It's easy to focus solely on the outcome, the blessing, the breakthrough, the fulfillment of a dream. But God sees the bigger picture. He knows that without the process, He may not be ready to steward the blessings He has prepared for you. Consider the life of David. When the prophet Samuel anointed him as king, David didn't immediately ascend to the throne. Instead, he returned to the fields to tend sheep. For years, he faced trials, rejection, and even danger as he fled from King Saul. To the untrained eye, it may have seemed like a waste of time or even a contradiction of God's promise. But every moment in the fields, every battle fought, and every trial endured was part of God's process to prepare David to lead a nation. By the time he became king, David was not only a skilled warrior, but a leader after God's own heart, shaped by the challenges he had faced. The process is also where God clarifies your purpose. In the midst of waiting or struggle, He often reveals deeper insights into His plans for your life. When things don't go according to your timeline, it forces you to slow down, reflect, and seek His guidance. These moments of reflection can lead to a greater understanding of His will, as well as a stronger alignment with His purposes. In the process, God is teaching you perseverance and patience, qualities that are essential for fulfilling your calling. It's in the waiting and the working that you learn to rely on His strength rather than your own. These lessons may be painful at times, but they're necessary for building resilience. A tree with shallow roots cannot withstand strong winds, but one that has grown slowly and deeply can weather any storm. In the same way, God uses the process to deepen your spiritual roots, ensuring that you can stand firm when challenges arise. The process is also a time of pruning. Just as a gardener prunes a plant to encourage healthier growth and greater fruitfulness, God removes the things in your life that are hindering your progress. This could be unhealthy habits, relationships, attitudes, or mindsets. Pruning can feel painful, but it is a vital part of preparation. By letting go of what no longer serves His purpose, you make room for the growth and blessings He has in store. One of the most profound aspects of the process is the way it transforms your relationship with God. When everything is going smoothly, it's easy to rely on your own abilities or take his blessings for granted. But in seasons of waiting or struggle, you are drawn closer to him. You learn to depend on his provision, to trust his timing, and to lean on his promises. These moments of intimacy with God are not just a byproduct of the process. They are a blessing in themselves. The story of Joseph provides a powerful example of purpose in the process. Sold into slavery by his own brothers and later imprisoned unjustly, Joseph could have easily become bitter or given up on his dreams. But through every trial, God was with him, preparing him for a position of influence. When the time came, Joseph rose to become second in command in Egypt, using his position to save countless lives during a famine. Looking back, Joseph recognized the purpose in his pain, famously telling his brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." In your own life, the process may not always make sense. You may not understand why certain doors are closed, why certain prayers seem unanswered, or why the journey feels so long. But trust that God is at work, weaving together every moment for his glory and your good. The process is not a punishment, it is a preparation. It is in these seasons that you grow, learn, and become equipped for the next chapter of your life. Embrace the process with faith and patience, knowing that God's timing is perfect. Don't rush it or try to take shortcuts, because the process itself is a blessing. It shapes you into the person God created you to be, capable of carrying out his purpose with wisdom, strength, and humility. Trust that there is purpose in every step, even when the path is unclear. What God has begun in you, he will bring to completion, because the process is just as important as the promise. Life is often described as a journey, but what happens when the journey feels slow, painful, or unclear? It is in these moments that the purpose of the process becomes evident, even if you do not immediately recognize it. The process is not an interruption to your destiny. It is an integral part of it. God is not merely concerned with the outcome. He is deeply invested in the transformation that happens within you along the way. The process is where growth takes root, where character is refined, and where the foundation for lasting success is laid. Too often we want to skip the process and go straight to the promise. We yearn for quick results, immediate answers, and fast-tracked blessings. But God, in his infinite wisdom, knows that rushing the process will leave us unprepared for what he has planned. Just as you cannot rush the growth of a tree or the development of a masterpiece, you cannot bypass the process of becoming who God has called you to be. The process is where God shapes your character. Before he can do something through you, he must first do something in you. Every trial, delay, and obstacle is an opportunity for refinement. The process exposes the areas of your heart that need transformation, your pride, impatience, fear, or insecurity. It is in the struggle that you learn to trust God fully, depend on him entirely, and develop the resilience needed to handle the weight of the blessing he has prepared for you. Think of gold being refined in fire. The raw material goes through intense heat to remove impurities and bring out its brilliance. In the same way, the process you endure is not meant to harm you, but to purify and prepare you. God allows the heat not to destroy, but to refine, ensuring that you emerge stronger, wiser, and more equipped to fulfill your purpose. The process also teaches patience and perseverance. In a world obsessed with instant gratification, waiting can feel like a punishment. But in God's economy, waiting is not wasted time, it is working time. God is never idle in your life, even when you cannot see the progress. He uses the waiting to build your endurance, teaching you to remain steadfast and faithful, even when the outcome is unclear. Perseverance is not developed in moments of ease, but in seasons of challenge. And it is this perseverance that equips you to finish well. In the process, God often clarifies your vision. When life is moving quickly, it's easy to get distracted or lose sight of your true purpose. The process slows you down, forcing you to reevaluate your priorities and align them with God's will. It's in these moments of stillness and waiting that God reveals His plans more clearly. What may seem like a detour is often a divine redirection, steering you towards something greater than you originally imagined. Consider the story of Joseph in the Bible. Joseph was given a dream of greatness, but the path to that dream was filled with betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment. It would have been easy for Joseph to doubt God's plan during those dark moments. Yet, every trial was part of God's preparation. By the time Joseph stood before Pharaoh, he was not only gifted, but also mature, wise, and ready to lead. The process had shaped him into the person he needed to be to fulfill his destiny. The process also deepens your relationship with God. When life is easy, it's tempting to rely on your own strength and take God's presence for granted. But in seasons of waiting and difficulty, you are drawn closer to Him. You learn to pray more earnestly, seek His guidance more intentionally, and trust His promises more deeply. These moments of intimacy with God are not secondary benefits of the process. They are central to its purpose. The process is where God prepares you for what's ahead. Just as an athlete trains before a competition, or a student studies before an exam, the process equips you for the challenges and opportunities that come with the next season of your life. Skipping the process would leave you unprepared and unable to sustain the blessings God has in store. Even when the process is painful or confusing, trust that God is working. His ways are higher than ours, and His plans are always for our good. The process is not an indication that God has forgotten you. It is evidence that He is actively shaping you for the future He has prepared. So embrace the process with faith and patience. Don't rush it or resist it, but trust that every step has a purpose. Remember, the process is not just about what you will achieve, it's about who you will become. And when the time comes, you will look back and see that every moment, every challenge, and every waiting season was part of God's perfect plan to prepare you for His promise. Waiting is often seen as a passive activity, a period of idleness where progress feels stalled and hope seems distant. However, in God's eyes, waiting is far from inactive. It is a time of preparation, growth, and service. The way you use your waiting season reveals the depth of your faith and the posture of your heart. Serving while waiting is not just an act of obedience. It is a demonstration of trust, humility, and readiness for the blessings God has in store. The waiting season can feel like a test, but it is also an opportunity. It's in this space that God invites you to shift your focus from what you're waiting for to how you can be a blessing to others in the meantime. When you serve while waiting, you step into alignment with God's purpose, allowing Him to work in and through you as He prepares you for what lies ahead. Consider the story of Joseph. While Joseph waited for the fulfillment of his God-given dreams, he found himself in a series of challenging circumstances. Sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. Yet, in every situation, Joseph chose to serve. In Potiphar's house, he worked diligently, earning trust and responsibility. In prison, he interpreted the dreams of others, using his gift even when his own dreams felt out of reach. Joseph's willingness to serve in the waiting not only prepared him for leadership, but also positioned him for God's ultimate plan to elevate him as a ruler in Egypt. Serving while waiting is an act of faith. It declares, I trust God's timing and I trust His process. It shifts your focus from self-centered frustration to God-centered purpose. Instead of dwelling on what you lack or what hasn't yet come to pass, you choose to invest your time and energy in what God is doing around you. This act of service builds your character, teaching you humility and selflessness. It reminds you that your life is not just about receiving blessings, but about being a vessel through which God can bless others. When you serve during your waiting season, you are also practicing stewardship. God often uses these moments to test your faithfulness in the small things. Jesus said in Luke 16:10, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much." The way you handle your current responsibilities, even if they seem insignificant, demonstrates whether you are ready for the greater responsibilities that come with the next season. Serving faithfully in the present prepares you for the blessings and challenges of the future. The waiting period is also an opportunity to cultivate a servant's heart. Serving while waiting shifts your perspective, helping you see beyond your own needs and desires. It reminds you that God's kingdom is bigger than your personal timeline, and that your waiting season can be used to make a difference in the lives of others. Acts of service, whether in your family, community, or church, become an avenue for God to work through you, bringing His love, hope, and grace to those around you. Look at the example of Ruth in the Bible. After the loss of her husband, Ruth could have chosen to focus solely on her own grief and uncertainty about the future. Instead, she chose to serve her mother-in-law, Naomi, and commit to her well-being. Ruth's willingness to work in the fields and care for Naomi positioned her for God's blessing. It was through her faithfulness in service that she encountered Boaz, leading to her place in the lineage of Christ. Serving while waiting also deepens your relationship with God. As you pour into others, you open your heart to receive more of His grace, strength, and wisdom. Service becomes an act of worship, a way to honor God with your time and talents. Even when you don't yet see the results you're hoping for, it reminds you that your identity and purpose are rooted in Him, not in the outcome of your waiting. The waiting season is not about passively enduring time until something happens. It is about actively participating in God's work. When you serve while waiting, you grow spiritually, emotionally, and relationally. You gain a deeper understanding of God's character and develop the patience, resilience, and gratitude needed to steward the blessings He has prepared for you. Now, in practical terms, serving while waiting can take many forms. It might mean volunteering in your church or community, mentoring someone, or simply being present for those who need encouragement. It could mean using your gifts and talents in ways that bless others, even if it feels unrelated to what you're waiting for. Every act of service, no matter how small, has the potential to make an eternal impact. Ultimately, serving while waiting transforms your waiting season into a season of purpose. It aligns your heart with God's and prepares you to step into your next chapter with humility, wisdom, and strength. Instead of seeing waiting as wasted time, view it as a divine opportunity to grow, give, and glorify God. Trust that as you serve, God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating His perfect plan for your life. And when the time comes, you will see that every moment of service was part of His preparation for the blessings to come. When God places a dream, promise, or blessing in your life, it's natural to think about how it will impact you personally. You may envision the joy, relief, or fulfillment that comes with receiving what you've been waiting for. However, one of the most profound truths about God's blessings is that they are rarely meant for you alone. They are designed to flow through you to impact others. The blessing is bigger than you. It is part of God's greater plan to reveal His glory and advance His kingdom. God operates with a vision far beyond our own. While we often focus on the immediate and personal aspects of a blessing, he sees how it connects to his broader purposes. His blessings in your life are not just a sign of his love for you, they're also a tool for his work in the world. He blesses you to make you a blessing. This truth is evident throughout Scripture, where individuals who received God's favor were positioned to influence and serve others on a much larger scale. Take Abraham as an example. When God called him, he promised to bless him and make him a great nation. But the promise didn't stop there. God told Abraham, all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Genesis 12:03. The blessing of Abraham was not just about him becoming wealthy, having descendants, or achieving personal success. It was about establishing a lineage through which the Messiah would come, bringing salvation to the entire world. Abraham's blessing was part of a divine plan that stretched far beyond his lifetime and personal circumstance. In your life, God's blessings are similarly interconnected with a greater purpose. When he provides financial resources, it's not solely for personal comfort, but to enable generosity and support for his work. When he grants you a position of influence, it's not just for your recognition, but to be a voice for justice, encouragement, and truth. When he heals, restores, or delivers you, it's not only for your benefit, but also to testify to his power and inspire faith in others. Consider Joseph, who endured years of suffering before stepping into his God-ordained role as a ruler in Egypt. When famine struck, Joseph's position allowed him to save countless lives, including those of his family. His blessing was not just about his personal rise to power, it was about preserving a nation and advancing God's covenant promise to Abraham. What seemed like a personal journey of hardship and triumph was actually part of a much larger narrative that would shape history. Understanding that the blessing is bigger than you changes how you approach waiting, trials, and success. It reminds you that your life is not just about you, it's about God's plan for the world around you. This perspective keeps you grounded, preventing pride when the blessing comes and despair when the process feels long. You realize that every step, every delay, and every breakthrough is part of a divine design that extends beyond your immediate circumstances. The idea that the blessing is bigger than you also challenges you to steward it well. Stewardship involves recognizing that the resources, talents, and opportunities God gives you are not yours to hoard, but to manage for his glory. Whether it's financial provision, a unique gift, or a platform of influence, the question to ask is, how can I use this to serve others and honor God? When you understand this, your blessings become a source of impact and legacy rather than just personal fulfillment. Jesus exemplified this principle perfectly. His life was the ultimate blessing, yet he did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life for others. Through his sacrifice, the door to salvation was opened for all humanity. His blessing, his life, death, and resurrection was never about him alone, but about redeeming the world. As his followers, we are called to reflect this mindset, using the blessings we receive to point others to him. One of the most humbling aspects of this truth is recognizing that your obedience in stewarding a blessing can have ripple effects you may never see. A kind word, a financial gift, a sacrificial act of service, or a testimony of faith can inspire, uplift, and transform others in ways beyond your understanding. The blessings God entrusts to you are seeds that, when sown, can bear fruit in the lives of countless others. So, as you anticipate or receive blessings, remember to look beyond yourself. Ask God to reveal the greater purpose behind what he has given you. Seek ways to serve, give, and impact others. Recognize that every blessing is part of a tapestry that God is weaving. A tapestry that showcases his love, power, and faithfulness to the world. When you understand that the blessing is bigger than you, it shifts your focus from self-centered desires to God-centered purpose. It transforms your waiting into preparation, your trials into testimonies, and your success into service. You become not just a recipient of God's blessings, but a channel through which His blessings flow. And in doing so, you align yourself with His eternal plan, making your life a part of something far greater than you could ever imagine.